Carl and Damon here from Games, Brains, and a Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial for short, and it's they made what into a TV series. Yes, we're back for our sixth round of this because if you include the first four seasons of Castlevania, and then the fifth season, and the first of Nocturne, and now we're up to the second season, or the sixth overall if you're looking in the whole Castlevania world. It's Nocturne season 2. Yes, it is out. It is all out, in fact. Episodes are all up on Netflix. They all drop as per usual. And if you're like us, no doubt you watched them within the first freaking day. I had to stretch mine out over a 2 to 3 day period, I think, which was fine because there's a particular episode that I ended up spending so long thinking about that, and I've watched that episode more times than I've ever watched any other Castlevania one. We'll get to that in the future. But this whole season as a whole, it's all there. But we do this format. We are going to do it episode by episode, so we get to talk in depth about what happens in each one. Because it'd be easy to give you a series overview. It exists. Go to our website, gbhblofficial.com, and you will find a wonderfully well-written, I say it myself because I wrote it, review of this season, which I don't know if you've seen. Have you seen that? Okay, there it is.
I read it and I agree with 100%.
There it is, folks. It's there if you want my season overview. This is us talking through episodes, which begins with episode 1. Yes, it is episode 1 called A Living Legend, written by Clive Bradley and directed by Sam Dietz and Adam Dietz. Consistency, eh? Same people.
It's what you want because it always works out better that way, I think.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You can tell whose baby this is. And I remember when I started this, I was like, right, how are we going to come back in? What's the way we come back in here? I did not expect to start 3 years previously in Egypt, as it turns out, as Alucard arrives at a great monument in the sand, one guarded by vampires. He demands in his very Alucard way, getting those lines out already, to they let him through, but inevitably has to kill them all, which he does easily. It's a bloody and brutal start showing off our favourite Dampier's talents. That's what I saw this opening as being like, okay, here's a reminder that Alucard, power and what he's capable of, and what he's probably learned since. This is very much a Symphony of the Night Alucard, not the Alucard that had just woken up from his slumber in the earlier seasons of Castlevania.
Yeah, I got the impression that over the years he's obviously studied all the Belmont's history and all the Dracula stuff. And that's why I gathered. Yeah.
Well, across the season, he will reference many different things that I think sometimes drops clues to where the show could go.
Yep.
But we'll get into them when they crop up. For now, even visually, his look, he's got that Symphony of the Night look where his pallor and clothing style and color stands out from the rest quite significantly. I like it.
Yeah. Yep.
So what's inside this place? It's Sekhmet's sarcophagus and a drop of her blood, it seems, which reacts in interesting ways. But Alucard finds the mummy missing and says, it says something on the lines of, "You made me kill you all just to protect fucking nothing." He's really pissy about it. And I was like, yeah, why are they guarding nothing? That's really, vampires are dumb sometimes.
Yeah.
Now, the present day, where heroes have escaped Elizabeth and Alucard has killed Drolta. That is the spoilers, sorry, but you should be up to speed by now, of what happened at the end of season 1. But now we see the eclipse is ending and the sun is coming out, although clearly for our group, things don't feel very bright at all. Do not forget, we lost someone in this process, Terra, who, to protect Maria, gave up her life and was turned into a vampire by Elizabeth. They realized that Elizabeth's solar eclipse is ending due to her powers getting weaker. Because that's the thing. Immediately I was like, well, how are we going to carry on? Hadn't she become Sekhmet? They have a lot of good answers for all of this stuff. And this one's simply, she's not fully powered up yet, basically. And that's that's very video gamey.
Yeah, I'm okay with that because it would have been stupid if she was fully powered and then basically it would have been dark the entire time. They've got no chance.
Well, I was kind of well, isn't Alucard too powerful for her? What if she's too... I saw what I called OGs, and they will write these OGs in a way that makes it all fairer, makes it more believable. But we'll get into that as we go on. Alucard apologizes for not getting it sooner, with Richter telling him of Terra's fate. He then explains to what he knows about Sekhmet's power, having gone looking for a way to defeat her. So basically, Alucard tells us he's been traveling for the last few years to actually find a way. He knew, he'd heard, and he knew what this cult was up to, and he had to find a way to potentially defeat it if these events occurred. That's where he's been. Because you could argue, what took you so long, brother? You didn't hear on the grapevine that things were going down in France.
Yeah, exactly.
She's been dead for thousands of years, but Erzsébet drank her blood. So that's the explanation for that as well. Why? Because you might be thinking Sekhmet, Erzsébet, all of this stuff's confusing. It's not. Sekhmet was an Egyptian fucking god that died. And simply this, her followers have her blood and basically found someone, a host, Erzsébet, and we will get more of an explanation about this as it goes on, to drink her blood and become the host, so to speak. However, her soul is divided between her blood and heart, which resides, and her heart resides in her physical body. A body that Alucard has tracked to Paris. Gay Paris. Paris for everyone else. And he asks Richter for help to find him. And we immediately see that Maria is like, not happy about this. Now, we will talk about Maria more as this goes on. But immediately, obviously, you're like, well, she's not okay. Here comes this hero, half vampire, half human. He's like, hey, Richter, come with me, bruv. You kind of understand why she's a bit like, ugh.
Yeah.
Later, Richter talks to Annette about Alucard and his connection to the Belmonts. Now, I love this. I love that we didn't have to go through the whole Richter. He's like, who's this guy? No, Richter knows of Alucard. He's a legend, he says, amongst us Belmonts. I was like, brilliant. Because, of course, Richter is a fucking Belmont. He would know the Belmont history. Alucard would be tied into that.
It also suggests that obviously that Alucard has been around other Belmonts other than Trevor and Cypher over the years.
In fact, we will get that confirmed in a later episode when another Belmont that's in the show will basically go, all right, mate, been a while. But Richter is torn because of his responsibility for Maria, and Annette tries to comfort him, but there's a struggle there. This is the first hint of a connection between these two that will be developed as the show goes on. Sometimes a little awkwardly in places, I will say, but I like it because I like the characters. It's okay.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we then cut to Erzsébet, who is emotional over the desiccated body of Drolte. It's interesting to see her so upset over that. Again, that will make so much more sense as the show goes on and you realize how far back those two go.
Yeah, I was like, why is she so she's so evil and she doesn't care no one. I was surprised at how emotional she was, but then when you find out the backstory, you're like, oh, okay, yeah.
Pretty much every episode starts with a couple of minutes of backstory. We'll get more about Drolte in particular as well. But Erzsébet promises vengeance on Alucard. Terra is now brought before her, and when forced to display her magic, embarrasses Erzsébet. So Erzsébet then grabs her angry and holds her in the sun, but Terra uses her magic to create an ice shield to block it out. I thought that was really clever.
Yep.
And this gives Erzsébet the idea to send Terra off to get the abbot using her powers to shield her from the sun. I love that scene. She's so evil in it. She's like, I don't think I've got enough magic to make it all the way there. And it's just that really close-up, horrible face. And she's like, find out. Like I love that. They do a lot of nice up-close shots in this that are really terrifying. There's a great one later on involving Terra that I think is nightmarish, but yeah.
Yep.
Elsewhere, Edouard and the other night creatures are collecting bodies for the abbot, burying them and giving them last rites. The abbot, Emmanuel, asks questions about what Edouard remembers, declaring that it's not possible and that night creatures are devils from hell. He is still on that shit. Now, don't worry, folks. He's not long for this world, and rightfully so, because his story is running out. But we'll get to that. And basically, he says, what is the point of prayers for things going to hell? Which he even acknowledged that he himself is going to go there for the things he does. He's done.
Yeah.
Terra now arrives exhausted from the magical exertion. She informs him that he is to go to Erzsébet when called, and he questions her love for Maria still existing, warning her to stay away from the girl. I did like the fact that he's like, look, stay away from her. Like, I know the problem is he has no right to take any moral high ground anymore. He doesn't, which puts in a really difficult place because he's not wrong, but also like, dude, you've been making night creatures for fucking Erzsébet.
He's so blind to him being right that no matter what, everything's right, that he's right. He's so blind to it.
It's the fact that it's based around. It's even as much as he's blind because he believes he's doing things for God, and
Mhm.
that's all that matters. If he does it for God, for good, it's in his eyes. That's it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, it was no different to when Lisa was burned in the first one.
Same
So
thing.
yeah,
Church is nobody's friend. In the bowels of the church, the abbot, having actually listened to Edouard, decides not to cage the night creature, and says, Well, he basically wonders out loud, like, what would you do? What would you do? What will you do? Will you do more than just sing? And like, it's not so much an agreement to go fucking do an uprising, but
mm,
I think it's like it's an interesting development.
yeah.
Richter sits and talks to Maria and does what Richter does best. Doesn't really even like fucking sugarcoat it. This is like, hey, she's a vampire now. Like, yeah, we know, mate. Approach it with a little bit more delicacy.
Yeah, exactly. A bit of bloody empathy. Yeah,
One thing that I would get about Richter, he might take a bit of a back seat in this season compared to the other characters, but he's still got a big mouth. She angrily accuses him of running away and leaving her mother behind, declaring away that he should run away to Paris as she doesn't want him there anymore. Look, I'm glad that Richter doesn't. He gets hurt by this, but he does know why she's hurting. You can't really do
yeah.
much about this.
No, of course not.
Olrox comes to Terra and he basically reminds her, look, you're going to have to feed, you're going to have to do it. But that doesn't mean you're controlled by it. God, his character's the best. I
All
know
right.
there's issues with him writing this, but the way he speaks, his role in this show, I love the voice actor. I love how he looks. There's a shot in the show later on where he's looking from above. It's one of my, it's like I want to have as a home screen shot. Like it's so beautiful.
I mean, he's arguably one of my favorite characters in
He's
this
a
entire two seasons. He's brilliant. Yeah.
he's a beautiful character and he's very complex, a
Hmm.
very complex one. Because let's not forget how we forget, and we'll be reminded at the end, but we forget his introduction to this show was killing Richter Belmont's mother.
Hmm.
So Terra sees a drunk man staggering through the forest, and the temptation gets too much, and he meets a terrifying end. That shot I was saying, it's here. It's when she flies forward, and you get this just flash of Terra's vampiric face. Scary
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It shows the evilness of vampire.
She's a vampire. She's a
Yeah.
vampire. And we'll get to this further along, but I had worries about this character that they will happily sort out for me as the series goes on.
Yeah.
Maria sits with Alucard and opens up to him about her vampire conflict, asking Alucard about Dracula and how Alucard dealt with having someone evil as a father. She asks if love can redeem him, and Alucard is careful not to necessarily agree,
Mm.
but suggesting, well, look, if there's anything that can make a vampire good, it's going to be love. But he doesn't outright say it. I think he's really careful of that. But I do love the fact that she says, and what did you do at the end? Like, what did you do with your father? And he's like, I killed him. And it's the matter of fact thing. It's almost like an inevitability.
Yeah.
It's an inevitability. And I only see that fate for Terra eventually as well right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, what's this? The National Frickin' Guard? They've turned up from Paris, having heard about this cult and this figure, the Elizabeth figure, because you're like, well, okay. And I love this because, like, yeah, like the National Guard would have heard about this and be like, this ain't happening. We're going to go stop this.
Yeah.
They've
Cool.
arrived to basically liberate the town from her control. And Maria, being a bit of a revolutionary, is happy to see them and runs off to intercept them.
Mm.
Meanwhile, Annette is contacting her ancestors, speaking to her mother about their failure and lack of power in the face of Elizabeth. Her mother tells her, you've got to go further, even further. Hear and see, even though it comes with risk. Now, I got that like, okay, well, she's communicating with the other side, the dead side. So she's being told here, you're going to have to go further into, well, the darkness of that side. I mean, it's not going to
Yeah.
be a nice place, is it?
Nope.
Her vision is broken when Richter arrives and he helps her up awkwardly. Again, they're kind of awkward around each other now a little bit.
Mm.
He tells her that Maria won't be coming to Paris with them, and Annette says Mizrak can protect her, with Richter suggesting, oh, well, somebody else can too. Elsewhere, the abbot arrives to see Elizabeth and he tries to maintain his power. He's kind of just like, you don't summon me. Oh,
God,
God.
he's such an idiot, man.
The only thing I would say is like, I guess it's kind of like, what would you do in this situation?
Mm.
You didn't think you're going to hell. Death doesn't really matter. You're scared of death because he's worried about going to hell too soon. It's that kind of thing. But
Yeah,
like, what threat does she really hold? He's her Forge Master. She can't kill him. Not
yeah,
right
true.
now, anyway. But she refuses to listen to his plan, insisting that they're going to march on Paris and cut the head of the revolution off there. She demands that he uses the bodies of monks to make more night creatures. So the ones that he buried and gave last rites to, she's like, you will use them to create more night creatures. And he just says no. I love everybody's reaction to that, though. Like, everyone, the night creatures, the vampires are like, the fuck? Oh, shit. Like that
was.
kind of thing. Shit, son, did he? You know what I mean? Like, that's it. I do love that. He points out that they retain some part of their soul, and he won't do that to the Christian men. So that's what he kind of took away from talking to Edouard.
Mm.
But that gives Elizabeth an idea. What if Drolta went into the machine? And I was like, huh.
Mm.
Yeah, and Emmanuel, the abbot, he's like, can't do that. Like, this can't happen. It's against like nature, whatever the fuck that means. Um, Elizabeth basically is kind of like, yeah, we're gonna do this. We're
Yeah.
gonna do this, mate. I don't care. And his argument is that, well, vampires don't have souls. Like, so what comes back? Like, that is a question. But he is in a no-choice situation. And then we cut the Rita, Annette, and Alucard heading off to Paris as Mizrak nearby feels the presence of Orlox, who, you know, is kind of keeping Olrox, not Orlox, Olrox, keeping an
Oh.
eye on him. You do see the shadow, don't you? That little bit of a thing, you know? Meanwhile, in the bowels of the church, the abbot is creating something exceptionally unholy, and it's a vampire night creature. As we see that Drolta is back. But what is Drolta now? That is the question. And that's how episode 1 ends. And a very strong reintroduction to everybody, but mostly to set up the path that everybody is on going forward. Very satisfying. Feels like Castlevania Nocturne. I was overjoyed with this. I really enjoyed it. It felt like, okay, this is what our season's going to be.
Yeah, yeah. I thought the exact same. You know, I was a little nervous at first watching it because again I feel like how are they going to continue on? And yeah,
Yeah.
it was a brilliant first episode.
Yeah, very satisfying. It's just going to get better from here, folks. But that was season 2, episode number 1, A Living Legend. You got any thoughts on this one you want to share with us? You know what to do. Let us know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It does help us out. You can find us at gbhbl.com and across all social media platforms. And if you really want to give us a bit of extra support, please consider buying us a cup of coffee over on our coffee page. Thank you.